Henners, we are going to do a review and breakdown of Star Wars Skeleton Crew starting now. Welcome to the Nerd Social. I am Colin.
And I'm David.
Disney Plus just dropped the first two episodes of Star Wars Skeleton Crew a couple of days ago. And the synopsis of it is four ordinary kids search for their home planet after getting lost in the Star Wars galaxy. Episode 1's title is This Could Be a Real Adventure, written by Christopher Ford and Jon Watts, directed by Jon Watts, and the logline is Kids from an Ordinary Planet Discover a Surprising Secret. Episode 2 is titled Way Out Past the Barrier, written by Christopher Ford and Jon Watts, directed by David Lowery, and the logline is A Surprising First Stop marks the beginning of an unexpected journey. So, David, what are your spoiler-free thoughts about the first two episodes of Star Wars Skeleton Crew?
Well, this is like a completely different take on Star Wars. This is a kid's show. It has a pretty nice start, even though it's a little bit slow because we're getting into the story and into the characters and into this new worlds that we never seen before. I enjoy it so far, but then there were some things I did not like. But this whole thing is nostalgic.
Yeah, I felt about the same way. I think that the vibes of the first episode very much screams like 1980s coming of age content from America Suburbia. So I'm thinking, obviously online they've been saying Goonies, probably Stranger Things in Space as well. But I think for me, it really compares a lot to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and also Back to the Future. The suburban life very much reminds me of that, the planet that they're on. So that's the feel of the whole show. Neil is my favorite character so far. He's a perfect sidekick, very innocent, not very annoying. He's very eyes wide open about the whole experience. I found one of the main characters, Wim, a little bit annoying, have the Anakin episode 1 Phantom Menace feel to him. Young kids are like that, so you can't really fault that to be the case. And of course, you said, David, this is a kid's show, so I can't really be so negative about that because as a kid, you would do those type of things. You have a different perspective when you're an adult. I think also that the plot moved along very quickly, much more so than, say, for example, an earlier show that we reviewed, Star Wars Acolyte, which was really slow. I think that the pacing of storylines was really great, and that has been the problem in the past. The beginning of the first episode was, like you've said, David, very nostalgic. It does remind you of the original Star Wars. Was that an intention to try to bring back some of the fans that they lost? We don't know. So hopefully they'll bring back some of those fans from the original series. Those are some of the spoiler-free highlights that I've seen so far in the first two episodes. So, David, what is your rating about the first two episodes?
I'd say a 7, which is a dinner party. Because you can watch it and then ignore some parts of the show because it's drag on a little bit, hence it's slow. But there were some scenes that draw me into the story. I want to point out two of the characters, which we'll meet, Fern and KB. It's like female versions of Han Solo and Chewbacca. This is also Lost in Space. And what would you rate this?
I will also give it a 7 as well, a dinner party. I think that for me, this might go higher depending on what I see the next few episodes. It's better than I expected. And even my brother, who is very traditionalist about his Star Wars, he said, oh, this is pretty good, which is a very good thing for him to say because he really didn't like too much of the Acolyte. But I'm not ready to give it anything higher than that yet. I'm holding judgment for now because we've obviously been burned about the ratings, and we talked about some of the pacing issues and out of order stuff that happened in the last series. There's nothing groundbreaking, but I'm curious to see how this all shakes out. Jon Watts, we've seen him from the Spider-Man trilogy, so he's done some good work. And I think that if he brings that enthusiasm and love of Star Wars to this series, I think it will be very well received. And again, the tone is definitely much different than, say, Andor. Andor is definitely very dramatic. Skeleton Crew is a little kiddie, but it's still okay. for adults to watch. It's not Star Wars Resistance or the Young Jedi Adventures. Those are definitely for kids. And I get the sense that an adult can still enjoy this very much. So any other thoughts before we get into spoilers?
Let's dive in.
Okay. If you like what we have to say about Star Wars Skeleton Crew and other content that we put out there, please like, share, subscribe for more. Really appreciate your support. And we thank all of our supporters throughout our social media platforms. And without further ado, spoilers ahead. So we start off with this scene of the pirates getting into this ship, and very reminiscent of episode 4, A New Hope here, with the lasers cutting through the door and the attack between the pirates and this other group of individuals that had some sort of buried treasure that the pirates are trying to get. There's also the scene where one of the pirates is speaking to the head of the ship, very similar to Darth Vader talking to one of the passengers on the Tantive ship in A New Hope. And so, how did you feel about this, David, that they really was very on the nose with episode 4, but a little bit different? What was your reaction to that?
First off, to tell our viewers, the show, it takes place in between episode 6, The Return of the Jedi, and also The Force Awakens, episode 7. This is where the Empire fell and the New Republic came in. But also the hyperspace routes has been played with a lot of pirates. When the opening scene where they saw a planet, that looks very familiar of New Hope, that you saw a planet first, and then the ship came out of nowhere, and then it was boarded by a pirate ship with the tubes come in. And first thing that came to my mind is, this is episode 4, except it's different scene.
Exactly. And then we see Captain Silvo here. He ended up not having the treasure that the pirates had. And so a lot of them started to mutiny against the captain because they didn't get what they wanted from this job. And then that was the cutscene of Jude Law's character that is in the helmet, but we don't know who it is just yet. Then we get into this idyllic planet of American suburbia, and so you see Wim is one of the main characters of this tale, and he has a sidekick. His name is Neil, who I love Neil so much. They're heading off to school just like any other 11-year-old that's out there. Him dreaming to become a Jedi, while Neil is more of a mild fan. You see them going after lightsabers. We don't really get to know how they're able to get the knowledge of the Force and Jedis. I'm sure that they probably heard it from stories from adults and probably from his dad too. We don't really know. His dad is one of those corporate accountants type of individuals. We don't know where the mom is though. Don't know what the situation is there, but you can definitely tell that he is a Jedi enthusiast.
All I can guess is that this is after the Return of the Jedi, so probably the word spread out how the Empire fell, and that is part of the New Republic. But we don't know where it is. All we know is that this planet specifically is not Coruscant. There are some species in there that's very familiar, like the one on the far left is Creole. Right? This planet is an automated system, as in the kids grow up, you take exams, and you find out what job you're meant to do. And there's like a system. What's that movie called again?
I think it's Divergent.
It's very much Divergent.
Yeah, so you definitely see that this is the undersecretary. You find out the undersecretary is the mother of Fern, who is one of the other main characters, what we get to see later on. But they're in a classroom. We saw some of the classroom stuff that was on Navarro in The Mandalorian with Grogu. So this is not unfamiliar to many of us, and the teachers are the droids. So there was a discussion about who they wanted to be, and Wim wants to be a Jedi. And so he's not really conforming to what they're offering here. And here he's talking with Neil. Don't you aspire to become more than what it is? So a little bit of Luke Skywalker, Anakin Skywalker type of feel. I want to get off this rock. Even though a very idyllic suburban type of life, he's not feeling it. And he seems bored of it. And he wants a sense of adventure, and gets to the whole title of this first episode is, this could be a real adventure. And so eventually, again, Neil's in the background saying, okay, I'll tag along with you. He's more of a follower. Then we see Fern, who's riding a bike here with her friend KB. And again, they have a relationship as well, where Fern is trying to get another sort of adventure, but in a different way. She's trying to rebel against her mom. She's rebelling using bikes and trying to find a power converter. Again, reminiscent of episode 4, where Luke wanted to find a power converter. That in episode 7, Force Awakens, J.J. Abrams pretty much mashed up all of episode 4. But this one, it's done much more subtly. So I do appreciate that it's a subtle nod rather than, oh, it's so obvious that's the case. What was your reaction to the nostalgia play here?
I think it's very clever in this kind of way to introduce the new audience into the world of Star Wars that's both familiar to the old generation and also something that can be relatable for the new generation. So that way they can look back and watch the other movies and shows that's connected to it. Fern is the undersecretary there. We saw a brief scene of them two together. The undersecretary wants her to be the top of the class, and she hates that because she wants to feel free and everything. That's why she literally rebelled. In this scene, William was late to take the entrance exam, and Fern was being placed at detention because she was caught by security droids for racing. What's cute on that scene that we get to see Neil's family, which are twins, and another baby. It's just so cute. I really love Neil, to all the creators of the show, saying thank you for making this character. But then later on, when Neil ended up going with Wim to find this ship, and it turned out to be a starship, not a Jedi temple. And because Wim accidentally pressed a button, which initiated the autopilot to get off the planet, and the 4 kids got into hyperspace without even realizing it, and then jump. And in this scene, we realized something. They said, oh my God, we got past the barrier.
Yeah.
So something about that planet has either hiding something or they're so sheltered that they don't want to go see what's more out there. And those 4 kids happen to be the first few to get out of it. We don't know how the ship was programmed to be autopilot, which they accidentally cut off. And hence they're lost in space.
Yes. And that was the end of episode 1. And this starts off episode 2, where they're in hyperspace. And the title of it is Way Out Past the Barrier. And Neil also said that line in this episode, which is really interesting. And we get to see, as they are in hyperspace, SM-33 is one of the droids that wakes up. He has a broken eyeball. A mouse comes out of it. He's very disheveled, and he's voiced by Nick Frost. And for those of you that don't know, David, you could talk a little bit more about Nick Frost.
All right, Nick Frost is not Santa Claus. He's well known in Hot Fuzz as Danny Butterman, and also in Doctor Who as, no pun intended, Santa Claus. So,
yeah,
right now plays an android called SM-13. The personality of the android is similar to the android in Rogue One. That's
K2SO.
Thank you.
Yeah, Alan Tudyk played K2SO, and it's definitely very similar to him. So, basically, SM-33 and Fern had a discussion, and Fern pretty much exaggerated, telling SM-33 that she killed the captain, and then she became the captain. Wim was saying, I thought I was going to be the captain. And then SM-33 was saying, you need to go to a duel for the death, which reminds you a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy. I know that this scene here also, David, you mentioned that it reminds you a lot of Nowhere from Guardians. So there's definitely a lot of inspiration from a lot of different properties that you see in other movies. Disney put out a whole thing about all the directors that are directing Skeleton Crew. It's like an all-star cast of directors. So they're really going after those creatives in order to revitalize, hopefully, in their mind, Star Wars. So they're going here to the spaceport. You can see here that Fern and the rest of the crew is trying to get out of the spaceport. They have this kind of a weird type of transport. It's also another homage to the Cantina on Mos Eisley. Again, spaceport, pirates, scoundrels, but I think it's done much more subtly than, say, what J.J. Abrams did in episode 7, when it was pretty obvious what he was trying to do. In any case, those two seems as though they're very fish out of the water. They go into a noodle shop, and it's very funny that they have a homage to ramen noodles, and he gave some credits, and then they were saying, what are all these Old Republic credits? So there's some mystery that obviously these pirates don't know where they're from. And when they say that they're from Aden, they don't believe them. Like, what the heck you talking about? That's like a legend. Are you sure? So there's some mystery that's involved, which is not overt, but it's subtle. And I appreciate that very much. What was your reaction, David, to all of these shenanigans that were happening while they were on this planet? We'll get to that scene later. With Fern and KB, they also encountered another alien being as well. The alien being was trying to keep them quiet and say, you guys are kids, you shouldn't be here. What was your reaction to all these shenanigans going on?
That's completely different, but I feel like this is just the scene in episode 4 where Luke comes to the bar and sees something very different. So it's very close to similar premise on that. It's just that the kids were very sheltered. They weren't really prepared for what to expect in a world far away, no pun intended. And then they didn't expect all these things. But the big thing is, as you point out, is when he mentioned where Atkins is, they're like, wait a minute, what? So they know about it, but they're not sure they existed. And second, when they hold a Republic credit, it feels like real gold to them.
Right.
Because to them, it's like riches or something like that. Because the Old Republic is worth a lot of money, apparently. So they're wondering where they get it from. Hence that they asked where they come from, which led to the brawl of chasing out the kids until Captain Sleevo's Brutus, the wolf here, captured them. And which, by the way, in case the viewers didn't realize, the one on the left is Jalen White, known as Butcher. I'm really surprised. What's he doing here? But I give credit to Jalen White that he's doing something very different, because we know him as Steve Urkel and also the voice of Sonic the Hedgehog in the 1990s Sonic the Hedgehog show. Now, back to the scene. The crew caught up to the kids and trying to interrogate them and tell them where you come from, why you're here, and then SM-33 jumped in and say, stay away from those kids. They're my crewmates there. He's about to confront one of them, and if you go to the next scene, we just realized that this pirate here, you've seen him before in The Mandalorian. Season 3. That's beat the crap out of them. I was like, whoa, I didn't expect that. That's another nod. Back in the Rogue One, until he got shot when they helped the kids to get back on the ship.
Yep, and then they got imprisoned. So Wim is thinking about some set of keys, the mouse that was from SM-33. Almost did get the keys, but did not. And then the shadowy figure comes out. We definitely know it's Captain Silvo, but he had some force powers. And I was shocked because I didn't think that they would bring that out that early. But they brought it out, and he's using the force. So more mysteries as to whether or not he is a full-blown Jedi like Luke Skywalker, or is he one of those Jedi that's Kanan from the Rebels? So we don't know. And again, the mysteries are very subtle, but then they give you a little bit of shock so that you want to watch the next episode. I'm very intrigued as to how they're going to be able to fit in all of those pieces together. This was the ending of the second episode. The second episode was actually much shorter. It was like a 30-minute episode. But overall, I think the second episode was pretty strong in terms of action, in terms of shenanigans, in terms of the scene at the end here. Any other final thoughts before we wrap up?
I can understand why the first episode was actually 48 minutes long, and this one's about 30 minutes. The first episode is a good intro to all the characters and this new story and this new world, just like how Ahsoka is now in a further galaxy from the Coruscant system. But there was a lot of mystery to it, like is Atkins part of the New Republic, but somehow known as a myth.
Right.
That's one. And another thing is, where did that ship come from and why is it there and no one knows about it? And 3, Jude Law's character, which is known as Nod Jarwood, he's a Force user. But we don't know if he's either like Kanan Jarrus, that he's a hidden Jedi, that his master would die, or maybe he's one of those like Jedi pupils that did not get picked by the Jedi Knights, but he was sent away by the temple from reading the books Star Wars Jedi Apprentice. I say it's likely he is Captain Sleevo. But the thing is, how did Jude Law's character became a pirate in the first place? And he could have escaped himself, by the way, if he is a Force user. But the thing is that how the heck is he going to escape even further? There's just no ship. I think he's going to use those kids for his own needs, but we'll see what it is. But this is a good start. I can't say perfect because this is very different story. These 2 episodes is a nostalgia run because a lot of nods to the previous installments. I just hope, as you said before earlier, compared to Acolyte, it will be more organized and the story's better. And I hope that it has a better direction than Acolyte.
So those are our thoughts about Star Wars Skeleton Crew. We would like to hear what you have to say about these 2 episodes. Please comment down below. Like, share, subscribe for more content like this. And we will see you in the next video. All right. Take care, everybody.